Hello there, welcome to another video. My name is Matt and this is Code Journey. VSCode is a code editor with a lot of functionalities and extensions that will allow you to code better and faster. In today's video, I will guide you step by step to download, install, configure, and show you how to use VSCode to skyrocket your productivity. Let's go to the computer. We are going to start by downloading Visual Studio Code. For that, we can go to Google and just type VSCode, download, or you can find the link below in the description, as always. The first link will be code.visualstudio.com, that is the official page from Microsoft. Visual Studio Code is a product from Microsoft, and then we can download the correct version for our OS. In our case, it will be Windows, so we just click that and it will take us to the overview and the getting started while the exe is downloading. After the download finishes, we are going to just click the exe and it will show the wizard. In here we are going to accept the agreement, click next, and we can configure a little bit of options in here. We can create a desktop icon, add open with code for different context menus and stuff like that. I advise to just check all of them because that will give you ease of access to Visual Studio Code from whenever you want. Click next, click install. When the install process finishes, you will see something like this. That is the successful installation process and setup. And just check the launch Visual Studio and close it. Click on finish and we will be presented with the Visual Studio Code interface. So now we are going to go through all the menus, the sidebar, the top bar, what extensions are, which ones I recommend for you to download, and a couple of examples of cool features that Visual Studio Code has to improve your productivity. We are going to start with the sidebar. The first icon you will see in here is the Explorer one, and that will show you all the open editors and the folder that you are working on. One of the big differences between Visual Studio Code and some other IDEs like Visual Studio or IntelliJ or whatever is that they don't have projects in here. So we don't work with projects in Visual Studio Code, but rather with folders. And that is like any folder you have in your file system, okay? Keep that in mind. The next icon and menu on the sidebar is for search. This is a global search that works for all the files you have in your working folder. Okay. The next one is for source control. That is when you link it with Git or some other stuff. I think you can link it to other source control versions, but I have never tried. For Git, this works very good. I like to use other tools, but there are many developers that integrate Git just right in Visual Studio Code and work with it. The next one is for the run. This is the debugger. This allows you to run your code and try to debug it and find bugs, etc. And the last one is for extensions. This is where we are going to be looking in the marketplace for extensions that the members of the Visual Studio Code community have developed. Okay? These are free and you can just install, configure and use them. We are going to go into details about them later on and I will show you the ones that I recommend. If you're new here and you want to become a better developer, please consider subscribing to receive more videos like this that will help you in your journey. Next up, I'm going to show you how you can open Visual Studio Code from different places and with some commands. So let's imagine you have a new folder where you're going to be working and you create my first VSCode project and you want to start adding files in here, working in Visual Studio Code, but inside of this folder. You have several ways of doing this. One is with the context menu. You will see that now if you right click into the folder, you will get one that says open with code, and that will effectively open another instance of VSCode working on that directory. My first VSCode project, you will see it appears as the working folder in here. Another way of doing this is through Bash. You can do this with the terminal of Windows or in the OS you are working on, or even with the Git Bash, and you can just go in here and set code dot and it will open another instance of Visual Studio Code with this working folder. In this case it opened the same one because it was working on this. I was working on that directory, but if I do it again, you will see it opens another instance. Okay, so those are two ways to open a working folder. If you are more like a terminal person or a git bash person, you can do it with that command, and if you like more contextual menus and the Windows approach, you can use that too. Of course, you can also access through the file menu. You can do an open folder and it will take you to the select the path and everything, or you can open the recent projects, that those are the ones you have been working on lately. That is very handy. After you have several projects, instead of going through each folder, you can just have a list of all the ones that you have been working on lately. Another thing I want to show you is the settings in Visual Studio Code. For that, you have this kind of a wheel, the common wheel settings at the bottom left corner, and in here you have the context menu setting. I think my webcam is a little bit blocking it, but you should see it there anyway. So if we click on this menu, it will take us to the settings of VS Code. We have two ways to see the settings in here. You can do it through this nice UI with all the configurations you can change in here, or you can use the more standard and previous preferred version, that is through the JSON file. Okay, settings in Visual Studio Code is just a JSON file, so you can modify it in here or go through the UI where you have a nice search box at the top. So for example, if you want to modify the theme, you just type theme and it will filter out everything and show you only the properties and configuration that make sense for that search. For example, I usually modify the font size when I'm recording videos because I want you to show in a bigger font size, and then I put like 24 general, and when I'm working on a project I use 18. So in this case I just modify that, and if we go to the JSON file, see that everything now looks bigger, and we have the JSON file that has the editor.font size changed to 24. Alright, so that's about it for settings. Now I want to move to terminal and multiple terminals that you can use in Visual Studio Code. That is a pretty neat feature. You can modify every window that you see on Visual Studio Code. Everything is resizable, so every time you want to change something, just hover over with the mouse and you can change the size of it. For the terminal, you want to go to the menu terminal, new terminal, or do the shortcut, and it will show you in the bottom a big square space for the terminal. In this case, you can see that you can have multiple of them and configure which one you prefer to use. If you are on Windows, probably it will default to the standard terminal for Windows. You can change that to use the git bash in the configuration. And then you can start adding several of them and work with different environments. Each one of these is like a new instance of a terminal. And this is great, especially when you are working with Angular, for example, or React, where you have to run your application and then keep doing stuff. Sometimes we are running our Angular app and we need to install a package, for example. And the terminal is busy because it is running, it is doing the serve for our application, and instead of having to stop it or create another window and run another terminal on other side, you can just in here click in this plus button, and that will give you another terminal in this same workspace, and therefore you can do whatever you want with that terminal. Another very used stuff here in Visual Studio Code is the command palette. The command palette you can access from here, command palette from the settings menu, with Ctrl+Shift+P is the usual shortcut, but there is one that works faster in my opinion, that is F1. Not a lot of developers use that, and not in a lot of tutorials they mention this, but I don't know why people prefer to use Ctrl+Shift+P instead of F1. F1 is just so much faster and only one key, right? So you can just type F1 and it will show you the command palette on top. This is very good, and this is like the main search to find anything that you don't know where to find, or even use some shortcuts while you are developing. I will show you a common example I use. later on this tutorial. So for example, if you want to go to the configuration, you can just type configure and see everything that is related to the word you are typing, in this case configure. So a couple of examples with this useful toolbar in the command palette would be to change the theme. For example, you can access the preference color theme from here. You can create a folder, for example. You can do file, new folder, open folder. Every time you don't find a command or something, you can search in here or in the search bar in the configure settings that we saw before. Those two will almost always give you the right answer. Now I want to show you how to install new extensions and the ones that I recommend for every developer. If we go to the last menu in the sidebar, that one we said was extensions. So we click in here, and this by default is very small and does not show the icons, the images for each extension. So I like, every time I work with extensions, I like to make this a little bigger so you can see the icons of the extensions you are going to be installing and working with. You just type in the search bar extension at the top, and live server, for example, is one that I really recommend, and you will type in the search and you will get all the matching extensions for that search. Usually the one at the top is the one that you are looking for, so if you click on the extension, you will get the author of the extension, the name, how many stars it has in the ratings, and these are the operational buttons. In here you will have the install, green install button, and then after you install it, you will have one that is blue that allow you to disable an extension or even uninstall if you don't like it at all. Okay, you can disable and re-enable extensions as you want. And of course, under there you will see like a description with the functionality that this extension provides. In this case, live server is an extension that will automatically refresh your HTML pages, your app pages, without you having to hit F5 or refresh on the browser every time you make a change. So if I'm working on a static HTML file, I make any change, I click save, and automatically it refreshes on my other window in the browser. This is great and saves you so much time. I cannot recommend this enough. It is one of the greatest things on extensions in Visual Studio Code. So after you get live server, we are going to be moving to Prettier. Prettier is, as it says, I like the definition in here, Prettier is an opinionated code formatter. Basically, it is an automated tool that will format your code. What this does is make your code more uniform, and it gives great structure. You may not like everything that Prettier does. You can configure if there are a couple of changes that it does that you don't like, but the standard is pretty good and I love it, to be honest. I know there are people out there that don't like it that much. You should probably just try it and see if it fits for you, and if it doesn't, you can tweak a little bit in the configuration, and if you don't like any of it, you can uninstall it or disable. Just give it a try because it makes your code much more easy on the eyes, and I like it. Another one is the ESLint. Okay, ESLint. This is an integration of the very well-known ESLint library that allows you to find and fix problems with your JavaScript code automatically. So this is great. If you are using JavaScript, it will allow you to be more consistent and find and fix problems super quickly in your code. Okay, so definitely if you are going to be working with JavaScript, go ahead and install this extension because it will save you so much time. And the last one I can recommend is the bracket pair colorizer. This one basically goes iterating between a couple of colors every time you indent an if or a method inside of another one. So for example, if you have an if inside of an if inside of an if, instead of having all of them the same colors in the brackets, it will start changing. So it is more easily to realize the context you are working in. In here you can see an example. We have the purple brackets for the method update document, and then we have an if inside of it and it has blue bracket blue color for this bracket. And if we had another if inside of this if, it will have another pair of colors, okay? So definitely give it a try. It is a nice extension to add some visual stuff to your code. Feel free to go into the marketplace and search in Google top 10, top 20 extensions for VS Code if you want to try them out. I think for starters these 3/4 extensions are good enough, and you can then add the ones that you need for different development. So by now you already are familiar with the sidebar, the extensions, you have already installed a couple of them, you know how to work with the terminal in Visual Studio Code, how to open it from different folders that you created. Let's start doing some code. We will start by creating a new file. For that, just click on this button New File and type the name of the file with the extension, in this case index.html. Once we start writing, we are going to use one of the very cool features that Visual Studio Code has, that is Emmet. Emmet is a tool that will allow you to just type the names of the tags you want to write in HTML and automatically complete the whole tag. This is awesome. If you are already familiar with Emmet, you already know all the perks of it, and you are probably proficient with typing HTML very fast. But if you are not, and this is new to you, this will save you so much time. If you just come from Free Code Camp or CodePen or any other editor that does not have Emmet integrated, this is a game changer for sure, 100%. Because instead of typing each tag, you can just type the name of the tag and it auto-completes everything with you pressing tab or enter. So this is great. For example, let's just type an H1 that says welcome to my cool website. And now let's suppose we want to see how this looks in our browser, and we can launch the live server extension that we installed before. There are two ways to do this. One is in the lower bar in here that says go live, and the other one is just with right click inside the document and open with live server. Both of them will just launch in another browser, and take a look at here that says live reload is not possible without body or head tag. So basically it is not going to auto reload because we just typed some H1 tag, but we don't have the structure of an HTML page. Later on I will show you an example, a complete example where we work with it. We can put them side by side and it will look something like this, right? This is a cool setup to work if you have a wide screen that will allow you to see how you change and how it looks in your browser on the side. This is a very common practice among developers. So let's type a couple of more things and create another file. Let's suppose we want to do a list of UL with 3 LIs. See, that is Emmet magic. Instead of having to type each one of them, I just created the first tag and then use the greater than sign and just type li, and with the times and the amount of tags you want, you can just create all of them on one click, right? And then just complete each one of them. 1 point, let's just do 2 and 3, whatever. We can just save this and update. Remember, it is not auto reloading because we don't have the structure of HTML, and we will see how it looks in here. Okay, before moving on to another more complex project where we are going to be working with a couple of files and show you how everything works and reloads automatically, I want to show you a couple of shortcuts in here. The first thing is that you can copy and paste very easily. You just put the cursor at the start of a line and then you can just click, you can just press Ctrl and C and go anywhere and press Ctrl and V and it will copy the whole line. You don't have to select everything and copy it. Just with the cursor at the start of the line, just copy and paste whenever you want, many times as you prefer. The same applies with Ctrl X for cutting and Ctrl V for pasting, and of course with Ctrl C you just go back. Another cool thing, if you want to just copy the same line but below, is using Alt plus Shift plus down key. that will copy the line you are in below the same one. If you want to move the line instead of copying it, you can just use Alt and any of the arrows, top or down, and it will move the line. Okay, so this is pretty handy to work with your code and move things around and make a lot of copy of them. Okay, that is pretty neat. So how about we work on a more real project with a couple of files and see what we can do with this and how quickly it is done. So if we go in another folder, my awesome project, I have an index already in here, and I can open it with Visual Studio Code. So I just open the project, and in here we only have an h1 that says hello VSCode in an index.html, and we have a couple of images already preloaded there in another folder that we will be using. Okay, you can see that the terminal is in here. We are not going to be using that. So let's launch this and see how it looks. So this is how our current website looks. It just says hello VS Code. Let's start modifying this a little bit and show the power of Visual Studio Code with all the extensions and stuff we just seen today. So the first thing is Emmet can help you create all the boilerplate HTML for every page, that is with an exclamation mark and enter, and it creates the doc type, the HTML, the head, meta, title, and body, and this is great. You don't have to type this anymore in your life. So let's just create this and say my VS Code site for the title, and then we can save this, and actually we should start getting this with the live. Open with live server, and now it should render automatically. If we change this to hello and save it, you can see that it refreshes automatically, and that is great. Let's create another file that says styles.css and just modify the background color so we make sure that this is working to red. We can save that and add a link in here. After you type link, Emmet will propose this and automatically make the relationship and the href. We can start typing, and VS Code automatically with the IntelliSense will propose us what we want to use. In this case, styles.css. You can see that this is much faster than actually typing everything out. And now our app, after I just save, it automatically refresh and shows us that this is working. Of course, we don't want this, so we can remove it and save it. Okay, so now let's start adding a couple of more things to our site because it is looking very lackluster. We can start by adding a container for our images, for example, container images. This is very neat, and I think I haven't explained it yet, but you don't have to actually type div anytime you need a div. You just can use the classes and it will create a div. If you don't type anything, you don't need to do this in Emmet. You can just do the dot for the class of that div, and it will create a div because it is the default element for putting it on a way. So you can just do dot for the class and put the name of the class, container, and it will create a div with a class container. The same applies for the IDs. You can just create an ID that says container, just for a lack of a better example, and it will create a div. And this applies to anything. You can also create an h3 with a class of subtitle, and it will create an h3 with that class. Okay, so keep in mind, Emmet also works well with classes and IDs. So we were working on a container of images, and we can create an image. It automatically completes the properties. For the source, we want to go to images and hello.png, and this will say hello dog, and we can actually copy one down and go and do VS Code and always fill the alt property, and after this we can save and see that we have images. Of course, this one I forgot to change the size, so okay, that is looking a little better. I forgot to change the size of the image, so that's why it was looking so big. So now we already have a couple of images there, and you saw the power of Emmet working with classes and creating code. Something that I find it very useful and I always forget is, let's imagine that we were working in here and we forgot that we need a container for all the code we just created. One way to do this would be to just go ahead to the top and put a class that says container, and then close the div, and then move the div below, and now do the tab, and then everything is inside of that container. You saw how much time that took. Other way to do this was our base code. We can just use the command palette with F1 and type wrap, and then Emmet has a wrap with abbreviation, and then you just type whatever you are going to wrap things around, and then in this case would be a container, so dot container, and Emmet automatically wraps everything inside of that container. I find this very, very useful every day, so I really recommend you give it a try. So now we have a container for all of this. Okay, so this is a good time to add Bootstrap. Of course, this is just to show you how you can use Visual Studio Code to develop fast, and this is not a video to show you how to use Bootstrap or teach you how to add it or whatever. So I'm just going to paste in the link to Bootstrap. If you don't know what it is, it's just a framework for CSS, for styling, and this will make our application look a little better once we start adding some classes and HTML in here. So let's just add Bootstrap, and already you can see that the font looks better, the images are looking a little bit better. And now we are going, first I think I'm gonna change this for an ID, because container already has some classes in Bootstrap that I don't want to use. Now we are going to be creating a class of card. So we are going to be creating a card in Bootstrap, and inside of that we are going to be having a card header, and inside of the card header we are just going to say today's website will be 3 dots, and save that. And then we just want to wrap everything inside of a card body, so use the wrap trick that I told you before and do a card body inside of this. So now we have a card header and a card body. You already see this is looking a little better. Let's put hello VSCode instead of just hello, and we can add, let's see, maybe a button below here. So let's just do an href, we don't need to point to anything, and do class button primary, and let's do on click. We are going to be doing a function hi, whatever, we are going to define that a little later, and say do your magic. So we already have a button, we have our title and our card. Okay, so I was just forgetting about the class for this card title. That will make it look a little bit better, and then we can have some styles in here for our container. Let's put some margin top. Actually, we can center this, so let's put 40 pixels and auto, that will center it, and then just add some limitation to the width. Let's put 90%, for example, and that will give us some nice margin. We will also want to style our card body, right? So let's just style our card body a little, do a display flex, a flex direction column, oh, what am I typing, and align items center. So that will, what happened there? Okay. I don't know why that was loading so slowly, but now it starts to look a little better. Our card body is centered in the middle, and everything makes a little bit more of sense. Now I just want to add one more thing, and that will be a JavaScript file. Let's say script.js, and we want to reference this, of course, in here with a script tag, and the source will be our script.js. And remember that we created this hi function for the onClick, so we are just going to create a function hi that do a very simple stuff and says hello kind person, for example. And if we just save this and save our HTML, then if we click the do your magic, we should get a hello kind person. Okay, so that's pretty much all the example I was going to show today. It is nothing fancy, of course. It is just a bootstrap card with some text, a couple of images, and show you how you can develop using JavaScript, CSS, and HTML in Visual Studio Code. Something very cool that I didn't got to use because I was showing you how it looked is that you can actually have several files open at the same time. You can just split left in here. I should have done a split right, but whatever. This splits the screen and puts one file on one side and one on the other. And you can, of course, handle this the way you prefer according to your screen, and then you can work on the HTML and on the CSS at the same time, for example. And you can even split the script, for example, down, and then have the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript all at the same time if you want, and then just save or save all. You can save all at the same time, and it will automatically update the web browser with your current version of the website. This is so great for productivity, and this allows you to get so in the zone and developing fast. So that will be all for our example. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy the tutorial. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.